And if you're pulling yourself down, more than likely that's not the voice in your head. Somebody programmed that a long time ago and projected their pain onto you. But when because I don't do that. I don't do that to anybody I know. I don't put negative shit. I do my best to not put anything negative onto somebody else, project something negative onto somebody else. So that's something that it's learning to be, again, it goes back to like learning to be your best friend.
Roll me, Mac.
Times when you and your close friends didn't see eye to eye? How did you overcome? I'll say a time where we didn't see eye to eye, mild stuff. We were kids in the Air Force, and truth be told, I can laugh at it now. I imagine he can as well. But it was simply a misunderstanding and making assumptions and taking this person's word versus this person's word. So somebody he knew know somebody that I knew that I was talking to at that particular time, and the person I was talking to shared that to me, and without going to the source itself, I responded emotionally immature. I responded with anger. I responded with ready to lash out and ready to whatever it was going to be, and I believe it's the same on his side, actually. But it was so minor. Looking back at it, that stuff didn't really matter, man. So what I saw was just my wounded inner child coming out in that moment, and just trying to be seen, heard, and loved, and just didn't want to feel disrespected, or somebody said something about you, you felt the need to respond to it, ego. But I was pretty hot. I'm not gonna lie. I was pretty hot about the situation. But honestly, I can see myself now, like vividly see myself. Silent treatment, we just not talking to each other on shift, and eventually once we got out of work, the fellas got us all together because it was dumb. It really was just like I said, just minor shit, just hearsay. It was pure hearsay, and we didn't talk to each other directly. So once we talked, it was like, well, she had said that you said that. Well, actually, she said that you said, that type of ordeal. So we squashed it. I mean, it's so minor compared to what our bond would become from that day forth, and even before that. I'm really blessed to have the family that I have, You know what I mean? The family I was able to create through the, going to the military, the support that they have shown me, in many ways, man, I'm truly grateful for it. All of them, the fellas that, I were to come across, and even some of the girls that, I knew in the military too, being that family that we were, being so close knit, all of us right there. And some of us will see each other through like Facebook and see everybody living their lives, people becoming parents, having families, hell, even some of us now being grandparents and all of that. But in that moment though, it was poor communication. It was taking the word of somebody who I just met versus somebody who I just met 3 months ago. So it's like a balance between that. But no, I think we had probably known each other a little bit longer than that. By that time, it was close to a year. Yeah, it was close to a year that me and my best friend had known each other through that time. And I was very defensive. I was like, man, he was like, oh, it's my friend. I was like, man, you can't call me that because I haven't done anything for you. I don't take that friend shit lightly. Like, what have I done to show that I've been there for you? And that was kind of like I wasn't trying to be rude to him. My delivery might have been kind of fucked up, but I was more so saying, man, I don't want to take on that title of friend because I've been burned by people that I call friends, and then to say somebody was a friend only for to find out how unfriendly we were, whether it was one-sided, both-sided, whatever it is. But I like to think that talking that out, that's really how we overcame it. We overcame it by simply having grown men conversation. I had to grow up. I was a lot younger. I was, I think Bird's like 4 years older than me. So I'm 19 years old, 18, 19 years old, and this guy, he's 23, but we bonded. We down for one another. Still to this very day, it's the same thing. Just very much down for one another, and I believe that relationships must be tested for sure. And I believe that we give more leeway in our friendships than we ever do with somebody that we're actually dating. And so interesting about us as humans, how that goes. But obviously we all have our reasons for doing so. But yeah, I look at that time, and another time, it was more so of some, again, another minor thing, just miscommunication between the two of us. And but there's nothing I wouldn't do for him. You know what I mean? And the bond is the same way. Like, we have each other's backs through a lot of stuff. I'm talking about like a lot of stuff. We really did have some good times growing up in the military, growing up, working, being in my, living in the city of Miami, in Homestead, and just navigating through life struggles, figuring out what we wanted to do with our careers, and me jumping from place to place because, at one point I'm in Homestead, next I'm in North Carolina, and then back to Homestead, and I go to Georgia, and obviously where I am right now, and back in Florida. But I say that we were able to overcome that situation because one of us was more level-headed than the other. And I would give credit to my best friend for being more level-headed than I was at the time. I had like I said, very much some growing up to do when it comes to confrontation. From what I'm used to, when you get into confrontation, there is no working it out. It's like, we finna break up. Like, the friendship is about to end. We're gonna fight. That's what I'm, programmed to believe what happens. So fear of abandonment, I'm saying, I'm gonna leave you before you leave me type thing. But we actually talked it out, man. And like I said, I'm grateful. I'm very grateful that I saw something different than what I was used to at that point in time in life, to show me that it does exist, to show me how one can be calm in conflict. Because I was about it. I was in Master P mode. I was, rowdy and stuff, you know what I mean? I know if Pep ever see, I know he remember that conversation. We had that conversation I want to say in Bird's, was it? Yeah, I think it was in Bird's dorm room. Yeah, we're so young, looking back at that. And it's, it's silly now and minor. And I imagine anybody that is going through something with like their friends and stuff, you'll see how, depending on the situation, but you'll see how minor the miscommunication, taking something a certain way, looking at it in a negative way, was what it does to you. I mean, nothing really more to say about it. I mean, I'm just grateful that we were able to withstand those times, those minor things that we realized our bond was a hell of a lot more important than any miscommunication, any rift that we may have had over whatever it is. That's what I'm saying. It's like you won't even remember what it's about. It's just you holding on to whatever you feed, you're gonna feel. So it's like learning to overcome whatever miscommunication there may be, talk things out like adults, and work towards common ground. When was the last time imposter syndrome has hit you in life? Imposter syndrome is one of those things that hits me maybe once every few months. And I've definitely felt it recently. I felt it, inside my mind, and I like to sit with it. It's not something that you need to really, outside of this forum talking about it, but I'll sit in my mind and think about the stuff that I'm attempting to do, the stuff that I've done, the noise sometimes that comes with you doing the stuff that you do, and remembering whether I need to value the opinion that's being made about what I'm attempting to do, because no one really knows what I'm up to besides me, but a lot of people can surmise what they believe I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And if you listen long enough, you'll start to believe the bullshit. And so there's a lot of times like, man, like what? That's not what I did this for. I wasn't in it to be like, try to be like a star. That's still not the case. I don't, be a star from this. This is more a forum for people who want to actually heal. You know what I mean? I want this to be like a judgment-free zone, to share just your thoughts on whatever's going through your mind. And I can honestly say that I love to use this forum as a place to share my honest thoughts. So like the imposter syndrome, it comes around and, do your best to hold it together, but it's just you and your ego having that, that tackle. It's a daily battle between you and the ego about who gets to drive the car. And a lot of times I'll let the ego drive on some, like just hearing old voices, making you feel like you're small in the mind. And truth be told, you don't have to be any size. You just can be. And I have to remind myself that sometimes, like, it's not important of how big or how small you feel. It's more so just being. And when imposter syndrome hits, man, you just feel like I haven't done anything to earn even the compliments that might be given, or even listening to the negativity that may come with, like, what, like, who am I that you felt that strongly enough to say that? You know what I'm saying, about what I'm doing, what you believe I'm doing, that is. Because like I said, the only person that knows what the fuck I'm doing with this plan, this platform, is me. And one can perceive it however they wish to perceive it. That's on you. That's just a reflection of what you got going on the inside. I know that. at the end of the day. In the moment, sometimes when I'm in my ego, when I'm in my wounded inner child, it's like I'm listening to what is being said, and I'm trying to justify if it's fact or fiction. Is it the truth or is it nonsense? And a lot of times I question, I'll question myself as far as like what I'm saying, how is it being interpreted, what I'm going to do. But even just in life, man, feeling that imposter syndrome, not just with like doing this show, but even just in life, sometimes that'll come up, and you snap out of it. You just snap out of that feeling that you're not worthy. I mean, I ain't that important to do so. You know what I'm saying? To make things about me. That is simply wounded inner child talk, because I'm just human. I'm just as valued as anybody else. And that's the thing, to catch that voice, to catch those small voices that speak to you in your ear. Like, it's not something you would say to anybody else, but it's like that voice that's in your head that's telling you that you're not good enough or whatever it is. You tend to listen, and when you do, this is when you go down a downward spiral in your mind, and you just feel sometimes inadequate. But it's not real. It's not real. It's not something that you want to attach yourself to. You don't want to you don't want to absorb those thoughts. You want to let the thoughts just kind of pass over and be indifferent. And I mean, that's how I find my way out of like imposter syndrome, is remembering to be indifferent. And it's like remembering to stay on your purpose every day, work towards it. Just keep working towards the purpose is what the plan is, and not getting caught up in he say, she say. Staying very much productive. And once your brain gets, I believe when your brain gets some routine, you kind of block out a lot of noise, man. It's like something that they kind of taught us even through basic training. We would do the same thing every day, and after a while, like missing your loved ones and all that stuff, you started to block that shit out and to get the mission done. And when you create a set of like a routine, like for you to do a daily schedule, for you to do those different things that you do in your daily routine, of determining whether or not you're going to have a successful day or feel like you had an unsuccessful day. And success is based on the person. It's not so much measured by glitz and glamour, how much money you got, and because a lot of people with money feel down. You know what I'm saying? They feel bad. They feel it's like figuring out. Jim Carrey has a wonderful statement. It's like, I wish people would get all the things that they dream for so they can see that it's not the way. And I think about that, because the little kid in me at one point in time does think about like having those things that were made to to be desirable in life. But I say all the time that the most fun that I've had in my life was when I did not have any money. Or I wasn't making a lot of money. I think about those times in high school or times in middle school where I got to go to my grandma's house, and it's just me and my cousins, and we found ways to have fun, and we didn't have any money. We weren't, they said we weren't loaded or anything like that. We didn't come from like millions of dollars or nothing. What we had was each other. That was it. All we had was each other. So when, sometimes working towards goals, you can get beside yourself. You can go down a negative path of like, yeah, I don't deserve this thing. And it's never about deserve. Anyone knows me knows how much I loathe that word, deserve. But to have something that you're going after, to be relentless, to be stubborn, to be determined, to use all of that in a positive way towards getting what you're working towards, I don't see the issue with that. And there's gonna be days where you wanna quit. I've had those thoughts on a lot of things, you know, and that's okay. It's all right to feel that way, but facts are not feelings. and I find that to be a relief, the fact that facts are not feelings. So what one can do is be very mindful of the thoughts that go through your mind and ensuring, like, does it benefit me? Does this tear me down? Is this an anchor for my life, or is this a sail? And if you're pulling yourself down, more than likely that's not the voice in your head. Somebody programmed that a long time ago and, you know, projected their pain onto you. But when, like, because I don't do that. I don't do that to anybody I know. You know, I don't put negative shit. I do my best to not put anything negative onto somebody else, project something negative onto somebody else. So that's something that it's learning to be, again, it goes back to like learning to be your best friend and treating yourself as if somebody that you were taking care of. That's a Jordan Peterson kind of way of looking at things. You know, he's talked about that before, to treat yourself as if you were looking after somebody else. Because if you were looking after somebody else, you wouldn't allow them to say this thing to them. And I, you know, sometimes you get back, you know, old habits die hard. And sometimes you'll speak on stuff in a way and you're like, man, you know, I was pretty tough on myself, you know, I'm pretty tough on myself. And then ask yourself, is it really worth it? Is it beneficial to you to speak to yourself that way? And I believe we're all guilty of it, man. We're all guilty of it. I don't care. The most confident person can sometimes get beside themselves. And the beauty of it is that you can get back on the horse. If you're still breathing, you can still get back on the horse. And, you know, it's just, there's going to be multiple times throughout life where you're going to have to get back on the fucking horse and block out the noise. Truly, just block out the noise. Meditation is something that's very much recommended, or sitting in silence. Sometimes we get very overwhelmed, but imposter syndrome, it affects us all. And I just take it how it comes and continue to work to be better at dealing with the imposter syndrome. Who is your favorite Disney villain? Well, I can tell you off the gate, the most scary bitch of the villains is that bitch from Snow White. When she turns into like the little witch or whatever, there's something about her I find to be creepy as fuck. But she's not my favorite Disney villain. If I had to give a favorite Disney villain, it would go to Jafar. Jafar was very menacing. He had a very maniacal voice. He had a very, you know, kind of dark look to him. And he was creepy. His laugh was hysterical and very, I guess it's very creepy. Like he embodied villain to me. And I would say runner up with that would definitely be Scar. And Scar was he was very maniacal and manipulative. He was strategic to some degree. He didn't follow up on the plan, you know, to ensure that his nephew was gone. But I digress. But my favorite Disney villain, I would have to give it to Jafar, number one. And then, like I said, runner up would have to be Scar. Been your most influential coworkers throughout life so far? All right, I look back at my days at McDonald's and I can remember Miss Dorothy. Miss Dorothy was probably was late 30s, early 40s, black woman. and the nicest woman, man, that you could ever, could ever meet. That's how cliche is that. I mean, she was one of the kindest women. We worked together. She always looked after me like a son, and that's what she did. She looked at us like, her babies. So, we all worked in the grill together. But she, I don't know, man. It's just a love. There's something about a mother's love, and that kindness that comes from having that love from a mom. You know what I mean? So when a woman looks at you, obviously from, being the age gap and all that stuff, being a kid, being 16 years old and perhaps, 30, being 39 or 40, and to have that love, that was given by Miss Dorothy to what she gave to me and the other, younger boys, that, we used to horse around and stuff like that in the grill, but she would kind of hold things in together, you know what I mean? Just kind of get us to straighten up and all that stuff, man. So I look back at like Miss Dorothy as definitely I would say like influential, just for that love that a mom would give to a son. Very grateful for those for those times with like Miss Dorothy. Another influential coworker, I have to say from my Air Force days is Sergeant Salish. And what I say about Sergeant Salish, because he's so influential, is because what he would do, he taught me and the rest of like us younger airmen to not take this military thing so seriously. Like he was able to come to work with a sense of humor, and from the basic training to tech school, you're taught to be kind of serious and all this other stuff. But when working with Sergeant Salish, man, he really did know how to have a good time at the job. And I was no more than maybe 20, I think, when he got there. I was 19 or 20 years old. But he made coming to work like something to look forward to. And still wanted to work too, you know what I mean? Like he wanted to get the job done, but he was a tech sergeant. So was that E6? Yeah, he was E6. And he would come to work with so much joy. One of our coworkers looked like Norm. God rest his soul. Norm, that is the guy that plays Norm on Cheers, has passed away. But he said he would be like, doesn't Georgie look like Norm from Cheers? And then he would play the damn song from Cheers. He would play the song from Cheers and do the signature line that Sergeant Gallion used to do. He calls him Georgie. Obviously, we show respect and call him Sergeant Gallion. But he would be like, "Alrighty, sir," all the time. So when he would play the song, and when the chorus hits, "Sometimes you wanna go," and he'd be like, "Alrighty, sir." And he would do it the way that Sergeant Gallion would say it. So, I mean, it's one of those things where you had to be there. But that was the kind of personality that he had. He showed us that you didn't have to take life so seriously, but you could still, get things done. So, thankful to Sergeant Salish for that. And moving forward with that, my, even the airfield manager, Mr. Baker. Mr. Baker was another person that taught us about, the beauty of working in airfield management is that you learn something new every day on the job. And this is coming from the airfield manager with like 40 years of experience. And he taught us a lot. Taught us a lot about our airfield. Taught us a lot about putting in these publications that we give the pilots so they know what's going on at our airfield. We call them NOTAMs. But he showed us he was calm, man. Like no matter what was going on for the most part, but he was so calm, and he had a smile on his face while doing it. And I'm pretty sure that our supervisors, the E5s and up, maybe they saw a more stern side of him because he's a boss and he has work to do. but he taught us, man, that, like I said, he taught us to another person who taught us not to take life so seriously. He knew how to have fun, and but he loved what he did. He loved what he did, man. You know, you would see the joy. He would come into work, he would smile, say hey to everybody, and then check out, you know, what we had going on, and then go off and get his coffee and get the day started. Yeah, Mr. Baker was he was a good man. He certainly was a good man. And wherever he is, if he's still with us, man, just grateful for the lessons that he taught a young airman, you know, me and my best friend, what he taught us and throughout our careers that would help us. One more person I'll talk about that I looked at as a very influential coworker throughout my career, I'll say definitely is my boy Ro. You know, we met in the desert, and we're young, you know what I'm saying? I think Ro's like maybe 2 years older than me, but we navigated our way through it. We, you know, a lot of stuff that we didn't know how to do that we had to learn how to do, working over there in the desert. But we would go years without seeing each other just because how, you know, life and work goes and career choices and all that stuff. But we linked up again when I was living in Georgia. He actually was the one that put me on to get that position. But he taught me about staying, like when you're at work, when you're at the job, stay learning, you know, stay reading. Like I would come into work, we worked the mid shift or day shift together, and you got some people like they're looking at the TV, some people scrolling on whatever on the internet, looking at Amazon or whatever website that your job is allowing you to do. But what Ro would be doing, man, Ro would be reading up on the regs. So he was very familiar with whatever was going on at the job. So, you know, when I first got to Jax, I was kind of, you know, I was hitting the books, kind of hard trying to figure out exactly what's going on around here. And there's a reg that we have to read. It was ADT, something like that. And I really do need to, I haven't read it in some time, so I really need to get back on that. But I kind of took that method when I got to the job, like, you know, no nonsense. I mean, somewhat I've gotten, you know, more comfortable with, you know, having conversations with my coworkers, but for the most part, staying locked in, you know, studying something, constantly reading something. And I really do take that from him, you know what I'm saying? That partial thing about, at least from the work, like checking out the pubs and all that stuff. Like he definitely did teach me a lot with that, and I appreciate him for that. But I mean, there's plenty of other coworkers, I imagine, that has been very much influential throughout my career that helped me get to where it is now. And grateful the lessons that they taught. A lot of guys that worked in other agencies that worked with us. Hell, I remember Mr. Jim and Mr. Mike at Hurlburt. They were very much influential. And Mr. Leo in Homestead. Yeah, he was definitely influential. BT Brian, you know, it was a very influential type boss. You know what I mean? Gary. There's many names, you know what I'm saying, that were very influential. My guy Stan too. Stan, he was one of the ones that kind of influenced me about reading, like actually reading books and all of that. And every time I would come into work, Stan would be reading a new book, and you know, I wasn't there yet. You know, mentally I wasn't there ready to kind of take on reading books the way that I do now. But I look at those times, man, and you know, you can tell a lot by a person by their library, and so I give a lot of credit to Stan for that. You know, those days at Homestead, just always reading something and, you know, expanding his mind. It eventually, you know, rubbed off on me, and wanting to do that every day just to become a better person. Nothing more than that. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the influential coworkers that, I've had over the years. But I want to thank everybody for listening to all of that, a couple life stories. Those are always fun to do. It's therapeutic for me. But thank you as well for listening to the end, and if you made it to the end. And I'll also be sure to share, like, comment, subscribe, all those things that, people that put out content ask you motherfuckers to do. And don't take it personal if you don't, but just saying that to hopefully help the algorithm. But I'm Romy Mac, and this is Ask Rome. I'm out. Good night, kids.